Welcome to the Near East by Midwest podcast with the NISA department here at The Ohio State University. Today I'm joined by two of my fellow graduate students who joined me for an epigraphic survey with Professor Ahmed Al-Jalad this past summer. This was specifically for the Badia epigraphic survey in the Basalt Desert in northeastern Jordan, also known as the Ḥarrah. And it was led by Professor Ahmed Al-Jalad and Dr. Ali Al-Manasir and was generously funded by the Al-Husn Research Center, Abu Dhabi, which is directed by Zuhair Al-Qadi, who we had the opportunity to meet as well. Now, the majority of inscriptions in this region are Safaitic, which is one of the ancient North Arabian languages that is found across the Syrian-Jordanian Basalt Desert. And we documented a lot of inscriptions out there, and we also spent about 2 weeks, made many, many good memories. And today we're going to be talking about our experience, how it informs our academic endeavors, and in general, why it is such a unique opportunity to conduct that sort of research here at The Ohio State University. So I'm going to start by asking you guys to introduce yourselves. What are you researching? What level of graduate student are you? And what brought you to OSU?
Sure. I'm Cody Beasley. I'm a second-year PhD student here. I study with Professor Al-Jalad the history of Arabic, which is my kind of larger methodology is comparative Semitics. So I do historical linguistics, and a big component of that now is Arabian epigraphy. So that's become a key focus of what I do here. What brought me to OSU is Professor Al-Jalad, and then opportunities like this to do this type of research.
Absolutely. I am Fahad Al Sharif, and I am a first year PhD student here at OSU. And I applied here to OSU to work, to get the opportunity to work at Semitic historical linguistics with a special focus on Arabic and getting to work with Al Jalad too. And that's also why I applied, reading all of Al Jalad's publications.
Yes, and briefly, my name is Salma Vizde. I'm a first-year master's student here at OSU. I became really interested in Quranic studies, specifically understanding the Quran in its late antique context, as well as in the context of ancient ancestral Arabian religion, which surveys like this help us to understand better. So I'm going to ask us to begin by sort of reconstructing a day in the field. So we arrived out there. Well, first we arrived in Amman, Jordan, right? And there was also Michael McDonald of Oxford University, who, I mean, I think we could say we were very impressed by the fact that he was, I mean, the field can be hostile, but he was incredible to have.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely. You come into this and it's like there's kind of Ahmed leading the charge for a lot of us kind of younger students coming up. And then there's Michael McDonald, who's like, uh, he feels like the father of all of this type of stuff. So to have the opportunity to go with him was incredible.
Absolutely. I remember at some point I was out in the field with him and we were taking a break. We sat down and he starts reciting Shakespeare. He like a good 3 minutes of Shakespeare. It was incredible. Um yeah. So after we met up with the team, we drove out to the field. Was it 5 hours? About 5 hours out to where we were staying.
Yeah, from Amman.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
And then the next morning, we went out to the field for the first time. Now,
Yep.
did we start at 10 a.m.?
So it started usually with a morning coffee around 4:45 in the morning. We kind of grouped up downstairs at our hotel. Um, each got our coffee and sat together, waiting for kind of the whole team to assemble. And then we began the drive to the desert.
Yep. At 5 a.m. we would drive.
That's yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty early.
Yeah.
And this was a pretty bare bones hotel. The town we were staying in, I think you could drive it all in 10 minutes.
Yes.
Pretty small. I remember the amount of animals at the hotel. I think there were cats and dogs everywhere.
Yep.
It felt like we were sort of sharing the space. But once we got our tea and coffee in the morning, everyone's half asleep still. If you were able to, you got some shut-eye in the car. It was about like a 2-hour drive out to the desert. And then once we arrived to the desert, I think for the first time we all were sort of struck by like the landscape.
Yeah, maybe we should describe what you mean by if you were able to get some shut-eye in the car. What might have prevented said shut-eye? It's you're driving on it's not a road, so you're driving on rocks, and the whole thing is, you're back and forth, the car's tossing this way and that. If you're lucky, you don't pop a tire. If you're unlucky, which we were more than once, you pop a tire and have to fix that. So it was a very turbulent drive to the desert.
And in the car, I was impressed by other people sleeping, and I
Yeah.
couldn't at all.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean that's why we were spending basically the entire time with Bedouin because they're the only ones that are able to navigate this landscape both I mean in a car and also they sort of know it like the back of their hand. They tell you, we stopped at this mountain, we didn't stop here yet, and they all look the same to me.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, probably like a tire a day maybe.
Yeah.
It was rough. And then yeah, so this is a very rocky landscape. It's not, when we think of desert, you think of like sand dunes. It didn't look like that. It's all basalt desert, which is volcanic, so just black rocks. Now, let's talk about the heat a little bit. These are black rocks that basically, I mean, they heat up during the day.
Yeah.
We would arrive around like 6, 7 a.m. in the morning, and it would actually be quite cool. It was in the 70s. And then by midday, the rocks had heated up.
Yeah,
I think 125 Fahrenheit.
from memory, I know it in Celsius, so 52 Celsius.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think was the hottest day.
Yeah. Yeah, it got pretty hot. The interesting thing is once you're in the field and you're among these rocks, the only way that I can sort of describe it is like an open air museum because you would be surprised how many inscriptions are out there.
Yeah.
You just walk and you stumble upon inscriptions. And these are ancient. These are, dated around 2000 years before present. And sometimes you have to sit down and be like, I'm reading something that's so old.
Yeah.
Which is an incredible privilege.
Yeah. Yeah, there's it begins to kind of you get an appreciation for how much there is. So we started before we ever went to the field. We had our planning day where we had the map on the table. We're looking at where we're going to be, and you think you're going to cover quite a bit of area, and then you're out there, and in every direction, as far as you can see, it's black rocks all around you. It's like you're such a feeling of being alone, except for the people that you're around. And then you search the area, and like someone says, you find so many inscriptions in a single day. And then by the end of it, you look back at the map of what you've surveyed, and you realize it is a fraction of the full scope of the desert. It kind of puts it into perspective in a special way.
Absolutely. We would spend hours at one site.
Yeah.
One site that really that caught my attention was a site where there was these inscriptions that were all Safaitic, but then next to them modern inscriptions. And then on the same rock, sometimes you would have Neolithic inscriptions. So it's just the amount of time people have spent in this one area is just...
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And it was nice because you would spend, a few hours at a site and then you'd come back to camp and the Bedouin would have tea for you ready always.
Yeah.
I know that we used to joke that it was sugar with tea. It was very sweet, but it was nice in the heat to have that.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of the day we would come back for lunch, which Fed, you helped out with.
Yeah, I cooked Saudi kebsa because the previous day the locals made a really delicious kebsa. And they said it's a Saudi kebsa, and I said, not quite. I'll make a Saudi kebsa for you guys tomorrow. And yeah, it was very nice cooking in the desert, and it is actually an activity that we do in Saudi Arabia where we would go to the desert and we would camp and we would cook. So this was not new to me, but it was very nice. It made me feel like I was back home.
Well, it tasted really good.
Yeah.
It was great. So when we finished from a day on the field, we get back, and what's the first thing that we do? You would think that we would all just want to go straight to bed, but I think everyone's ready for a snack.
Yeah, we would. Well, once we reached the hotel, we would go for ice cream. Usually,
Ice cream, Coke.
yeah.
Yeah, Coke.
Why the Vimto
Oh yeah.
was a highlight for me.
Yep.
Basically, at right next to the hotel, there's this little like dukkana, like a little grocery store with snacks. So we would all splurge a little bit and have our snacks and debrief about the day in the field. And that was, I think, I really appreciated that. You know, we were doing a lot of hard work out in the field, but there were constantly moments to check back in, to be together. It was very communal in that.
Yeah. I mean, even after these long days in the heat, we're all exhausted to some level, but that moment is so energizing in a way to like get back, put your bag down, sip on a drink, and then man, the conversations that happened at that moment as well, about anything, about the inscriptions that we'd found, about kind of the wider fields. It was a really special moment. Those times specifically, I think, something to look forward to every day, and yeah, really beneficial.
For sure. And I know you and I had taken Safaitic the semester before.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to work on these inscriptions like as pictures that are on your laptop and you're trying to understand what does this say.
Yeah.
It's a completely different thing to be out in the
Oh
field.
gosh. Yeah.
And yeah, I want to ask, like, how do you think being out in the field, reading, you know, in person, on site, change the way that you read these when you're back home?
Yeah. I think two things come to mind. And the first one is kind of what you said earlier. Like you feel like you're in an open air museum. And these things are so old. Not the oldest. You've got like the really old stuff, but even 2,000 years ago, that's a long time. And to think, obviously the Bedouin that we're with, they know where the inscriptions are. They don't know how to read the Safaitic script. And so when we're out there, like who's the last person that has read this, you know? And so we're the ones that like it's sacred feels like maybe too big of a word, but there is like a really kind of weight to it, you know? To being the one to find an inscription. My favorite one that we found is one of my favorite. I feel like I could talk forever about this. There's one inscription where it's the name of a father, and then in a very tiny script above it, his son writes his name, and then he says, "I found the writing, or so and so found the writing of his father, and he missed him." And it's like you find stuff like that. It's like this is beautiful, you know. So on one hand, it's an appreciation. From being in the field now, when I read the Safaitic inscription on Ociana or something, I have an appreciation for it that I wouldn't have had without going to the field. And then secondly, so many of these are connected to the landscape. They're connected to the structures that they're around. So for example, we came to one hill, and the hill has just an amazing vantage point of down like two separate wadis kind of parting ways. You can get like a full 180 from behind. So the vantage point is phenomenal here. And it's at that location that you find inscriptions about people looking out for the Hawila tribe or something like this. And so you start to realize that these inscriptions are not random. They're not kind of one-offs. These are connected to the place where they're written. And so that's a perspective that I wouldn't have had without the field as well.
Yeah.
You saying that this site, I remember there was an area in the mountain where I said this area gives a really good look into the two wadis.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, I'll find probably many inscriptions over there. I go there, none.
Yeah.
Until then, I see only one, and it's not even related to being on the lookout. It was an inscription written by a slave. And he says that he is a slave of the Amira tribe. And the Amira tribe, if you know, the inscriptions usually write in the script called the square Safaitic. And the poor guy, he was attempting the square Safaitic, but he was really failing, and he gives up at the end. But yeah, that was like, it's really interesting to see them in person,
Yeah.
look at the landscape. And another area that we went to was an area where there were plenty of inscriptions, and I was reading all of the inscriptions nearby, and I noticed that each inscription that was written by a guy from a specific tribe. I forgot the name of this tribe, but all of all of them were scratched out by someone who doesn't seem to like this tribe. So each person from this tribe, his name was scratched out in the same site. So it's really interesting to see it there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to sort of build off of what you mentioned about the father, the son coming and seeing his inscription and missing him. The way that I would sort of describe this landscape is like a graveyard as well.
Yeah.
Graves everywhere, and most of the inscriptions are about grieving, grieving for lost loved ones. And that brings me to a discussion about a very particular part of this project, which was the excavation of a specific site. So during the 2024 survey, Professor Jalad found a site. And this site was basically made up of stones that were put in a circle, all stood up to face inwards. And they all had inscriptions on them in which people were grieving and saying that they built this structure for a particular person. And so it seems like this is a funerary installment. There was one of these inscriptions that seems to have been made by someone who came afterwards and saw, this site and remembered death himself. And it's this inscription that was the topic of one of Professor Jalad's recent articles, because this inscription in particular includes the author calling on Allah as Du Kharaqa and as one who gives nur. Now, we don't have much time to get into it here, but this is really important because it helps us to understand how Allah was conceived of in ancestral Arabian religion, and in particular, the fact that they conceived of him as a creator and the one who gives light prior to, the penetration of Christianity and Judaism into the Arabian Peninsula, suggests that there was, that this corner of the world, you could say, was a part of the ancient Near Eastern thought world. Now, we came back this year and we brought with us an amazing archaeologist, Dr. Silvia Lici, and she conducted an excavation of the site. Now, you guys had the opportunity to do some excavation with her.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you guys about what we found without giving away too much. And why was it so important to have an archaeologist on the team and specifically to this site?
Yeah.
So to the site, the funerary structure, one of the reasons was to maybe find bones of whoever was buried there. We did find bones, and the results will be presented later in a publication, hopefully. The site that me and Cody worked on was a sacrifice site, which Cody discovered. I was with Michael later, and I joined at the end of the survey to do the excavation. And spoiler alert, we found nothing.
The site itself is amazing. To just briefly tell the story, it's my friend and I, Dr. Muhammad Hayyan, he and I were kind of walking along between two peaks. So typically you think of kind of most of these inscriptions coming from the funeral cairns, which are on top of the kind of small summits nearby. And as we're walking between, we stumble on many inscriptions. And so we start to look around before we begin photographing. We just want an idea of kind of what we're dealing with, what the scope is like. And as we're walking, we find one area that's been cleared out. And there's kind of multiple structures that we seem to detect. I want to, so on one hand, we've got standing stones kind of making a semicircle on one end, and we've got inscribed stones opposite these, standing with the inscriptions facing this other panel of stones. And as we begin to translate the inscriptions, we notice that multiple of them, I think 7 total from this one site, mention sacrifices with prayers to Allah. And we begin to notice also that families are connected. So we've got inscriptions from a father, and then later the son will be there making sacrifices. So this seems to be some type of cultic location or something like this. So it's really a very exciting site that we got to do a small dig at, just to see, if there was anything that we could detect as far as remains go. It was essentially just a light coating of dust on top of more rock, but this site itself is phenomenal.
So I remember when we came to the sacrifice site, you and Dr. Han were very excited
Yes.
to show us what you guys had found. I don't remember if it was that specific day or if it was a different day, but I had been surveying separate from you guys with Professor Jalad. And I remember we tried out a new method. So usually, as we mentioned, a lot of these inscriptions are clustered around funerary sites. And a lot of times those funerary sites are at like high places, right? So you kind of look out to the landscape, you find the high places, and then you go to them to look for inscriptions. But what we found is that there are actually these paths like these hidden routes in between the cairns. And so we came up with this new method of follow the yellow dust road. And you would be surprised that actually there are inscriptions found along those paths. And so there's reason now to explore this new, uh, I guess, methodology for finding inscriptions because, we sweep an area and we say that it's done, but in reality, we're only hitting like these particular sites, and there's still so much in between them that you could potentially sweep. Um, but yeah, it'll be exciting to see how that figures in future missions.
Yeah.
For sure. Now, I want to talk about when we got back. So when we got back to Amman, we also had the opportunity to meet with the Minister of Tourism and Antiquities, in which we got to attend an event, for Jordanian culture. Why is it so important to make these discoveries important for the people that are living in this place? Because as you mentioned, the Bedouin, they know this desert like the back of their hand, but they can't read the inscriptions. And actually what you'll find is a lot of these funerary sites are dug up. The graves are dug up, and the Bedouin sort of told us about that, why that's a practice that happens.
I'll say one of the things that, when it comes to the culture and the Bedouins, sometimes they would offer insight to some of the inscriptions we would find, despite them not being able to read the inscriptions. One inscription was this picture of a camel, and on the camel was this heavily decorated thing. And he said that there is a lady riding the camel, probably, and there was a scene of a battle. And he said that this used to be a practice in the area where whenever there was a battle, they would get a camel and they would put a lady important to the tribe that would motivate the men in the battle, and they would heavily uh, decorate the structure. He gave us the name of the structure. I cannot remember it right now. But yeah, so they did offer insights to some of the areas, and it was pretty important to talk to them. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a kind of a point of this being a collaborative kind of mission is, um, I went in having read about Bedouin Arabic or Bedouin culture or something, but then interacting with our guides, they were so impressive to me, and the amount of knowledge that they have, their familiarity with the landscape. I walked away with a huge appreciation for the Bedouin. Um, and I think in that way, this is really our work with the inscriptions on these missions is very collaborative in the sense of both going and finding the inscriptions and then also making them available to people that don't have the opportunity to go, to people that live in Jordan in the area. I mean, today this is yeah, a huge part of it. These things, are um, yeah, important on many different levels. And so for us to be able to go and get them, we're the ones who have the privilege to do that. And then we can, give people access to those that don't have the ability to go out into the desert. So,
Yeah.
you mentioning Bedouin Arabic, I over there in the desert, I did attempt to do some linguistic fieldwork and recording their dialect and all of that. Um, it was a bit more challenging than I thought because I've never done this before. But I realized that if I were to do a proper research on the local dialect, I would need more than 2 weeks.
Yes, many dimensions of fieldwork. This was epigraphy, but it's also linguistic, I guess, in a way. But it goes to show that, it's one thing to theorize the way that these things played out. It's another thing to go out and try it yourself. Does this actually, work out when you put it to the test? Um, okay, so coming back, both of you guys are conducting research here at OSU. How has your experience in the field, how is it going to contribute to your research moving forward? Are there specific projects that are coming out of this? Yeah.
I don't have any immediate projects connected to this most recent survey. But in general, the Safaitic corpus is extremely important for work on historical Arabic dialects and things, which is what my final dissertation project will be on. So on one hand, I think it's again um, back to kind of understanding the scope of the situation. Like there are so many inscriptions that we've documented, and then so many more that are undocumented. So I think I have now a better kind of handle on not just how to read and understand a Safaitic inscription, but kind of the place of Safaitic inscriptions within a larger view of the history of Arabia, the history of Northern Arabia. So that is definitely kind of always on my mind and engaging with these sources now. And then the other side of it, so much linguistic information. They're very formulaic on one hand most of the time, and so you're kind of looking for the few that are not formulaic, and what do they tell us about kind of the earlier linguistic strata of the language. And we came across a few of those, so always those will be important as well for kind of reconstructing ancient Arabic.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Uh, that would link to my work here in OSU in the sense where the little linguistic data that I collected is still very valuable because this dialect in the area is not well researched, let's say, and they had a lot of interesting features that I recorded, and maybe I could work with those over here in
Mm.
OSU.
You're talking about modern Arabic.
Yes, the modern, yes,
Okay.
the modern.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, and I can briefly speak for myself. There were two inscriptions that I found to be particularly relevant. They explicitly mention Allah and call on him as a guide, and also call on him seemingly in opposition to other deities. And I think that these inscriptions will bear particular relevance to our understanding of who Allah was to the ancestral Arabians in their religious imagination, and obviously that trickles down and helps us to contextualize the Quran's polemics against its interlocutors. And I had the opportunity to present it recently at the International Quranic Studies Association conference, and hoping to put it all together in an article soon. And so, yeah, I think for me this was an invaluable experience in terms of moving my research interests forward. And yeah, there's endless material out there, endless material, so much work to do. Um, and I mean, it's worth noting that OSU is one of the few places, if not the only place in the country, where you have the opportunity to go out and do this.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, well, I think we've shared a lot of memories today. I think we're all feeling a little bit nostalgic.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the material's still out there, still waiting to be discovered. Very exciting times to be in. Thank you guys for taking the time to speak about your experience, speak about your research. I think a lot of other students will find it really inspiring.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.